Hi, this is Ms. Montgomery, and we're here to start out the unit on cell structure and function in pre-AP biology. So this is the introductory video. In this video, we're going to talk about the cell theory, which is an idea of who came up with what part of the cell theory, what it is, what we know that is consistent about all cells. We're going to look at cell size and why cells are small. We're going to look at the basic structure of all cells. So we want to look at parts that are the same in all cells or even in most cells. And then we're going to look at the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Okay, the cell theory, the very first person to study nature with the microscope was Anton van Leeuwenhoek. He was Dutch. In the 1600s. He built a lot of different kinds of magnifiers, and he ground his own lens, and he made all of these little microscopes and looked at all kinds of things. He looked at scraped stuff off of his teeth. He looked at pond water, and every time he saw a living thing, he was the very first person to see that. Anton van Leeuwenhoek. Three tenets of the cell theory. So we have a cell theory that can be stated in three parts. The first part is that all living things are composed of cells, and we know this because of work by Robert Hooke in 1665. We know that cells are the basic unit of structure and function in all living things. This is split into two parts. Matthias Schleiden in 1838 said that this was true for plants, and Theodor Schwann in 1830 said that this was true for animals. The third tenet of the cell theory is that new cells are only produced from existing cells. So you couldn't just leave meat out and produce flies, which was a popular concept at the time, that there were actually flies had to lay eggs on it, and the eggs had to become maggots before you ever actually got flies in it. This was first noted by Rudolf Virchow in 1855. Cell size. Cells have to be tiny, but why? Cells do vary in size and shape. Most are 5 to 20 micrometers in diameter. They vary widely in shape. Plant cells tend to be rectangular due to a rigid cell wall. This is particularly true on the outside of plants rather than the inside areas. They have a very regular structure that looks similar to a brick wall in some tissues. Animal cells tend to be more irregularly shaped. The diversity in cell form reflects a diversity of function. So diversity kind of means differences. So if you're looking at the diversity of cell form, you're talking about all of the differences in shapes, and that reflects all of the differences in the jobs or the functions of those cells. The surface area to volume ratio requires that cells be small. Well, you guys know how to calculate surface area. You did that a long time ago. So you know what that is. And volume, you know what that is. You've calculated that before in a math class. But here we're looking at a ratio, a surface area to volume ratio. As cells get larger in volume, their relative surface area actually decreases. This limits how large an actively metabolizing cell can become. Cells need to have a large surface area. They need this because they need to be able to remove wastes from the cell. They need to be able to excrete things that they made in the cell, and they need to bring in building materials to make new stuff. So in this table, we're looking at just if you could imagine a paper cube made out of just notebook paper, something that was 1 centimeter on every single side. So the surface area of that would be 1 times 1 times 6, because if you unfold it, there's 6 different surfaces on there. So that would be 6 centimeters squared. The volume we know is length times width times height. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1 centimeter. And then the surface area to volume ratio, which is what we're interested in looking at, is 6 to 1. If you do the division, it's 6. Well, if you double the size of that cell, you get 2 centimeter cell. 2 times 2 times 6 is 24 centimeters square. 2 times 2 times 2 for the volume is 8 centimeters cubed. 24 divided by 6 is 3. So you can see that the surface area to volume ratio got cut in half. At 3 centimeters, it's not quite as drastic, but we end up with a 54 to 27 ratio, which is 2. So you can see that the surface area to volume ratio is decreasing with the increasing size of the cell. Some basic cell structures that we need to look at. All cells have a cell membrane or a plasma membrane, so this is another instance where there's more than one word to mean exactly the same thing. All cells have cytoplasm and ribosomes. Many cells have a membrane-bound nucleus and a cell wall. Notice that some of these structures have asterisks. The ones with asterisks are visible under a light microscope like we'll see in class. Obviously, the ribosome is the only one that doesn't have that, so you won't be seeing a ribosome. They're way too small. Ribosomes weren't discovered until after electron microscopes were discovered, so they're really, really tiny. Prokaryotic versus eukaryotic cells. All cells could be placed into one of these two categories. The word prokaryotic, well, you know that pro means first or before, and you know that kary means nucleus. So this is before a nucleus. These are very small cells. They have a nuclear area, so they have an area where there is DNA or RNA, but there's no membrane-bound nucleus like there is on our cells. This includes all bacteria, including both domains, archaea and eubacteria. Eukaryote, well, EU in front of a word means true, and kary again means nucleus, so this has a true nucleus. These cells tend to be larger. They have a membrane-bound nucleus, so their DNA is enclosed within a nucleus. They contain many organelles that are specialized to do specific things. The things that they might do is convert food into energy, digest food, secrete hormones, anything like that. And this would include all members of the other domain, Eukarya, and includes the kingdoms Protista, Animalia, fungi, and Plantae. So looking at some structures that are the same in all cells, so you can see right there how much smaller a prokaryotic cell is than a eukaryotic cell, even though we know that eukaryotic cells are pretty small. The prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell both have cell membranes. If this cell had a cell wall, it would be out beyond or past the cell membrane. And both of them have cytoplasm. So the cytoplasm is everything that all of the cells, cell organelles, and cell parts are suspended in. Now, only the eukaryotic cell has a nucleus. That's generally in the middle of animal cells and shoved over to the side of plant cells. And only eukaryotic cells have organelles. The organelles that they're looking at right here are the mitochondria and the Golgi body, which can also be called the Golgi apparatus or the Golgi complex. So those are some specific information about introductory cell things that you need to know for class. I hope that was helpful.